In the interest of time, we have to look at the dynamics in politics, which seem to be shifting after Dr. Besigye hit the trail going across the southwestern regions of Uganda. Somehow, he says he's consulting the members of FDC on way forward for the Katonga faction after that split within the FDC. But looks like he's also mobilizing support to take on the vacuum that is existing in the opposition ranks. I don't know if, Richard, you believe me, if it is true, Dr. Besigye could be looking for a comeback. Do you think so?
I don't want to make a mistake, first of all. I don't remember how many times Dr. Besigye has stood for president.
4 times.
4. Okay. So, if you have done something 4 times, in my view, and you do it the 5th, there should be no
consequence, no impact.
There should be no worry. No. If you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is what you have been doing. So that, for me, that is the first thing. You have a perennial presidential aspirant who becomes a presidential candidate. That is, so you have what is his name in Kenya, Cross, the one who is once.
Rider.
You have.
He's the next chairman.
You have a rider, and there must be factors that drive people. There must be, of course, we know there are challenges, but there must be benefits to it. That's for me. But 2, we have said here also previously that in the circumstances of the opposition, we will have another vehicle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have talked about the construction of another vehicle to accommodate you have groups of disenchanted people from opposition groups, but also from the NRA wing. They needed a vehicle. We talked about the formation of a vehicle, and we agreed that a vehicle is going to be formed for 2026 to keep them on the journey for politically relevant and available. And Dr. Besigye, we also have discussed, some of this of us have said before, he has never accepted to be led by anyone else. It has to be him.
In his group.
Who is taking leadership. Even when he was being led elsewhere, he left. He quarreled and he left. So it is him.
Oh.
Yeah. Who
so if a new vehicle is to be formed, it is him to drive.
Otherwise, he will not allow it to move. He will do everything to punch holes in it. And he has done this. He did this for FDC. We talked about it here. He couldn't allow Mugisha to function. And he couldn't allow Poa. And then Poa, of course, and especially Nandala, because the real person was Nandala. They pulled the rug under his feet. So he has to go and construct another one. He's been relatively clever that he went to the places where he had some roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see, the FDC, unlike the NUP, was a bit national. It had MPs from different places. The NUP, it's around the River Nile and Lake Victoria.
Yeah.
Not much more. So they have a struggle to make it themselves. So there was no way you could see Dr. Besigye and Amama Mbabazi. There was an attempt, if you remember, the
TDA alliance.
Nothing. There has been this talk that he would be. There was no under Chaguranyi. That was not going to happen. And now Mpuga has helped the processes of NUP to have a group that would most probably go to ally with Dr. Besigye. They were with him, several of them. Honorable Mao has also helped that group.
From DP to move
and
on.
Then you have the one of the Honorable Akena. So there are those groups, but you also have people who must move away from the Namiaro politics, the Hajat Namiaro, politics, and also they have to detach and go find a home somewhere. So I think he's done a good job to try quickly.
Do you see the dynamics somehow change from what we thought 2026 would be if Kizza Besigye returned?
No, for me, the political dispensation in this country is in the hands of the NRA. Dr. Besigye is part of the NRA group. He walked out, but he's there. He probably is the most credible alternative if there was to be any change. I think he's the one who would probably be most acceptable to the people who hold levers.
Okay.
You know, because there are people who hold levers internally who have everything to protect. They have amassed so much, they are worried. But also acceptable to the foreigners who also influence things here a lot. So I think he's doing a good thing for himself to be instead, but it keeps you relevant, it keeps you in the limelight, it keeps you traveling globally, it keeps you alive and going. So I think everything is in, but to say that the political dynamics, the fundamentals are in the hands of the NRA, and until that changes, I don't see the fundamentals changing.
Thank you so much, our viewers, and Kamurasi Joel says, thank you so much, the panel. Even we, the traders in Kasese, he uses the word strangled by many taxes. We think something must be done about the economic environment in this country, and it's high time the government intervenes. But it's URA's government, and these policies are coming in.
No, it's talking about politics. This is where we will end at the desk of the president, obviously. The president cannot ignore these people. I told you they are the least to do these things because they are the ones who have something most to lose. And they have done the thing where they withdraw their labor and go home. You can't tear gas them, you can't. You can start arm twisting them, but you will be really hurting yourself politically.
That's true.
It will end up at his desk and he'll say, oh, these idiots of mine, why can't they handle this? Then he will make concessions and 2026 will be on our hands.
Thank you so much. Keep those messages coming in. Dr. Jared Wero-Wansala, we had made our predictions, I think, towards 2026. That this would be, this is most likely to be an easiest contest President Museveni has ever involved in. But looks like the tide is changing, with Dr. Kizza Besigye pulling crowds in the whole of the Southwestern.
Yeah, one, I will discuss this in the context of 2021 elections, and then the prevailing circumstances in the country, especially in the opposition. Now, in 2021, I think around 2017, Dr. Kizza Besigye was not very sure whether Bobi Wine would run for president. And at that time, Norbert Mao all made attempts to bring Bobi Wine on their side to simply be a supporter. But the forces within central Uganda changed and said it's this time to bring our own. And they had seen a young, vibrant person who resonates with the majority of the young people.
In Bobi Wine.
In Bobi Wine. So now this caught the country like wildfire, and we saw there were situations, for instance, in a by-election of Basari in Vujiri, where Bobi Wine took the lead, hijacking the red overalls and the Tojikwatago campaign, and the FDC candidate, who was backed by Dr. Besigye, trailed terribly. We saw the same thing playing out again in Arua, where the Honorable Kassiano Wadri was competing, and again Bobi Wine took sides and they swept Arua like wildfire. I think Dr. Kizza Besigye said, wait a minute, if I go into this election, I have been getting about 60% of votes in Uganda, Central here. Am I not going to be embarrassed if this region is gone? Then what's going to happen to me? But also he was conscious that in the FDC he did not want anyone else to run for president. But after pleading with him, I think Nandala, who I know for being temperamental, took a decisive decision and told Paul, let me take you to be nominated. So when I saw Elias Lukwago converting to FDC, being propelled to run for president, I knew that Dr. Kizza Besigye was looking for someone to take over leadership of FDC in order to clear the way for him to return in case circumstances allow. Now, if you analyze, we did an analysis of 2021 elections. Many people have been wrongly saying, you know, but Bobi Wine got the same percentage as Kizza has always got. If we looked at the votes of Bobi Wine, he hit President Museveni with almost 90% in some places in Buganda here. Dr. Besigye never achieved that. But again, when we looked at regions like Bugisu, Lango, Acholi, West Nile, Bobi Wine performed very poorly, because including Western Uganda. In fact, in the absence of Dr. Kizza Besigye, made President Museveni win Rukunjiri. With, you know, he was, he was getting, like in some areas in Ankole where Dr. Besigye used to get, say, 30%, Bobi Wine was getting 2%. So now, I don't want to look at Dr. Kizza Besigye as a wasted or spent force. If I was an opposition strategist, I would actually, because I know that this posturing of them walking around, we are now going to work together, it's not going to work because of egos. But if I was an opposition strategist, I would let both of them enter the race. Why? Because whereas Bobi Wine may have a big stamp here, Dr. Besigye could take Rukunjiri, could take Kabale, could even maybe turn around Acholi, where he used to beat President Museveni and maybe get 50% in Lango and re-energize West Nile. So now the election means other factors remaining constant. Maybe the other side playing with the referee and so forth. The election would end up in the mathematics of percentages and go a second round, which would now naturally bring opposition forces together. But of course, a second round is also tricky, because in every election I know there are candidates also who are fielded by President Museveni. But
so with the Dr. Kizza Besigye possibly coming back into the picture, we can now speak about, or we can project a rerun in 2026.
I said other factors remaining constant, because I always see, you know, people complain in elections that we have areas. We did an analysis of Chiruhura. We had over 100 polling stations where the voter turn-up was 100%. No one died. No one stayed home. Others, even the president got 103%.
Those are
there are those factors
saying that they might
actually
stay constant.
Those results were uploaded. They are even on a portal. I can direct you on a website. You can't remove them. Stamped by the Electoral Commission. Now, as we predicted, there is a new vehicle that is being formed. One, for two reasons. Dr. Besigye was telling his colleagues at Katonga that political parties are now not important. It's good to have what he called one big tent, all coming together. But now the colleagues like Semuju and others who need an electoral vehicle, they were saying, now for us, how do we play politics on the street? You know? Okay. So I think you have to succumb, and this vehicle is coming, and the way things are playing out, there are people in NUP you are going to see in that vehicle. The whole DP parliamentary group almost is a rebel group of Mao, so they are going to they will probably ally either with NUP
wouldn't that leave NUP very weak?
Yeah, it will be weak, but of course it will not be like 2021 when they had everything. There was no Besigye, there was, you know, the other candidates were weak. They will be, of course, a little weaker, but I still believe that Bobi Wine is still relatively popular in his home ground where he's playing from. But he may probably lose Busoga.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the program. I want the panel to tell me, why do we lack leaders? Where is the problem? NRM without President Museveni is no more. FDC without Besigye, no more. NUP without Bobby, no more, and other parties, even PRU. That is his observation. You can start from there.
Rugarama is a leader, is he?
I don't agree with the observation.
I think he's talking about
the strong personalities in
strong
the
man syndrome.
Yes, in the respective. Yes, you see, before Bobi Wine came onto the political stage, who knew that he would be such a force to reckon with the way he is now? So the statement that we don't have leaders is a sweeping statement. But in the context in which he appears to be bringing it, to the effect that, look, if you go to NRM without Museveni, then NRM is dead. Probably he's right. But you see, even in politics, usual politics, conventional politics as we know it, there is no problem with big man syndrome. Because if he is your number one and he makes political scores, there is no need of substituting such a player. But I think for continuity, which is very critical, there is a need to groom deliberate, it should be a deliberate move to groom leaders in the respective political parties. Now, we seem not to be doing that. That's why I want to agree with that particular message. We seem not to be doing that very well. Because when you look at NRM, and the NRM of the late 80s, early 90s, you could point out that without so and so, so and so is there. But now when you look at our party, NRM, it may be very difficult for me, unless of course I'm pretending, to say that without my party chairman and the president of the Republic of Uganda, so and so is there. I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure.
Now, when I'm not sure, you want to believe that I'm not a political novice. Really, if I say I'm not sure, then there are so many other people who are not sure. And that is not the kind of state that we would want this country to be in, neither our own political party.
All right.
That is one. But what is also critical is to look at the general political apparatus of the country. The opposition, generally speaking, I don't know, I'm not so sure that the opposition political parties have been enabled. There has been an atmosphere created legally and otherwise to enable them to flourish,
Yes.
to be able to genuinely compete for power. I don't think that has been provided.
Could it be a reason why Dr. Besigye, who has contested 4 times for presidency, now, coming back for the 5th possibly?
I want to look at the coming back of retired Dr. Besigye in a different light altogether. You see, my thinking is that he feels greatly betrayed by his comrades, the Nandara Mafabis, the engineer Amuriat, and the group, where they were suspected to have been heavily compromised by the NRM machinery, so much so that he looks now at all his efforts in that FDC as going to waste. If he says, I'm throwing in the towel, let me go to Kasangat and have a rest. His coming back could be 2.
Okay.
1, that he wants to salvage the little that is left of his political energies and those who believed in his magnetic political prowess and probably the philosophy that he carries and the message. He says he doesn't want to leave them orphaned. That's one. But at the same time, I want to think that there is a way politics, one gets heavily acclimatized and drunk on politics to the extent that without doing politics, one would go into limbo and oblivion. So probably he doesn't want that to happen. He wants to remain relevant because a man like Dr. KB certainly has got international sponsors who used to give the money, and I want to believe they have not died, they are still there, and probably by galvanizing now what looks like a dying political party, whether he wants to form another political party. And that's another argument, by the way, because in Uganda now, I don't think it is so simple like we had NUP emerging to form another political party. Maybe to go and buy
there are very many
existing political party, give them enough money, and even NUP, by the way, failed also to. If NUP also has failed, by the way, to purchase, because apart from them having won the first round, when you look at how court pronounced itself on what they did, it is not conclusive. There is another round, and this time probably, if the Dr. KB and his colleagues are going to purchase another political purchase, quote unquote, another political party, then they must do it very well.
Okay.
They must do it very well. But I'm looking at a situation where NRM, even with all these failings here and there that we may point out, is well ahead of
all others
political parties.
All right, Richard, could it be the return of Dr. Besigye, could it have been prompted by failure by the opposition NUP to thrive and convince many of the opposition thinking citizenry and giving them direction? Could he be salvaging, like the word Comrade Rugama used, salvaging even the NUP disgruntled supporters?
I don't think Dr. Besigye went away. No, I think he remained. He's never gone away. He remained. He didn't go away. So I think that's really the situation, is that he is continuing, he's being around. He never went away, and there would have been no Katonga faction if he had gone away. Because how many years if he was in gone retirement? No. And I have heard him promise that he will not take political office if his group gets into government. And I thought that is again the usual
rhetoric.
The mandering. I call it language mandering. People do language mandering. if you, for example, if you're chairman of a ruling party and you have so much power to and leverage over appointments, over policy, and you say, no, but I'm not part of government. This is really language mandering. So I don't think that Dr. Besigye, first of all, went away. So when you say he's coming back, he stayed on the stage. He's now, doing what he was doing, going around the country, and he calls it, by the way, he says it is FDC. He is consulting FDC members on the formation of a new party. So it's the usual politicians packaging themselves, and especially their words, to create a facade of newness Yeah, but
It's a form of rebranding.
yeah, it's really a form of rebranding, and I think now he probably regrets why he pretended that he was a Democrat and wanted to leave things to happen, and then he went and undermined them at every stage, and kept the one. But also, I think this attempt to say that NUP failed, so where it failed, I am coming. So it is because people don't really sit down to say, okay, what did it fail? Did you have more members of parliament at that time than the NUP does? Did you get more support in terms of real numbers of votes? Are you getting more? Did you get more visibility and more support from external, networks? So what do you say? Why do you say it has failed? Were there no disagreements in the NUP in the FDC when you were there as president?
Okay.
So for me, the Apollo, I think the one who is reinvigorating is not the opposition.
Okay.
Is Dr. Besigye.
Okay. Kato Charles says, thank you so much, the panel. And he says, the real opposition has come back. I think he means, I presume he's talking about Dr. Besigye and his group. What do you make of that?
Anyway, in this country,
real, he talks about real opposition.
Well, I don't know what he tries to mean, but I think he's trying to play into the weaknesses that people are talking about, which Richard has just shot down. But the issue of real opposition and not real opposition, when Dr. Besigye was around, we used to see people they used to call malls. When he ran the campaign against Mugisha Muntu, he said Mugisha Muntu's group were malls. And so it's not something new. And also, but what I want to agree with him is that there are people in this country also who worship Dr. Besigye as a deputy god, including my MP of Chira municipality. That when he says that I will not run, they say he said he will not run. But the next day when he runs, they will be campaigning and say, yeah, they will not think about what he said. You saw 2011 said it was the last election he was competing in with President Museveni. 2016, he came back. Said he's not, until the last moment when he had to make a decision and take away, of course, the support from Amama Mbabazi. And the same, 2021 was just a shock, and so it was a strategic withdrawal. But right now, we in the corridors meet people who are saying, 2026 try, because it might be some are anticipating that maybe things may change, maybe President Museveni may be too much unpopular that they can force something that we have never seen. But about what he's saying, Ugandans help me to remove President Museveni before I clock 70 years. I don't want to wait for elections. It has always been so.
Okay. Finally, from you, Dr. Rugarama, what do we envisage in 2016 as we now embark on that road to the general elections?
The truth of the matter is that the NRM, my party, in the recent 1-2 years, has unfortunately created a lot of uncertainties, because we had the emergency of MK, who later on turned PRU, and we saw a number of our ministers who are NRM and MPs putting one leg here and another one there, and that is not good for politics. As a political party that has been in leadership for the last 38-40 years, we need to have transitioned and matured into a political party that can have something to be respected about. But in that regard, it is also of great importance to notice that NRM has made gains from the opposition, and a lot of them, by the way, bringing on board DP, entering into, and there is rumor that they created NUP, I don't want to go there. Then we have seen also the marriage with the UPC. Those gains cannot be undermined at any given rate. Therefore, as a way of concluding on this, I'm looking at going into 2026. The signs now I get are that Mzee is coming back, and he's going to win, of course.
Easily or
yes,
with difficulty?
He's going to win easily because I have not seen any fortification from the opposition, including NUP, which has got the largest numbers as far as opposition MPs are concerned in parliament. I have not seen them fortify their position and also recruit new members. So I want to say that NRM 2026 is going to win comfortably. I want to also look at the opposition is going to continue undermining each other, and that is not good for political climate.
Thank you so much. The current parliament and its leadership is so arrogant, and they think they are above the law. At a time when businesses are not doing well due to COVID-19 effects and tax increase, this amounts to inciting the business community. Uganda is ours all. And he's Fred. Thank you so much, Fred. I think he is commenting on the previous topic. Well, your final comment here on the show, Richard?
No, I think we have, I don't know why people are talking about grooming successors. I think we have a general who is a standby generator.
UNRA.
This country. He has gone around presenting himself. He has a group that is akin to what they eat on ED. I think the name is Rhyme. And I don't know why people are not looking in that direction. You see, sometimes we refuse to see what we don't like. But some realities on the ground can be.
You disagree with the comrade Rugarama, who thinks they have not groomed.
The final thing is.
You will not go to heaven.
The final thing is to allude to what Dr. Rugarama talked about. That if you had asked people about, if you had mentioned the name Kyagulanyi and said he would be one of the most important human beings in this country, they would dismiss you and think you are crazy. By the way, they would take you to Butabaka for a mental change. It's the same time I used to tell people that in the 1980s, if you told anyone worth their thinking that one Haburwa would be president for 40 years, they would also take you to to check you. I know they actually wouldn't take you to check your head. They would know you are mad and they would admit you. So the leaders will emerge. We should not be too worried that there are no leaders.
What do you envisage as we look at 2026?
But how can I envisage the obvious? Unless the forces of nature intervene. President Museveni will retain his title, will hand over from President Museveni to President Museveni.
There was a message here. I'm looking at it, and before we close the show, okay, it's interesting. It's interesting. Just 1 minute before we close. Make it 1 minute.
In the previous election, I almost did not have a choice for president. When I was to go to vote, it was very, very hard for me to take a decision on who to vote in 2021. And probably the return of Dr. Besigye gives some people some options that if you really despised Bobby Wine or you thought maybe you have Dr. Besigye to look to. I have no doubt that Dr. Besigye is going to be on the ballot in 2026.
But doctor, do you know that Dr. Chikebi's message now is intensifying civil disobedience?
He actually
he talks about that in favor of appearing on a ballot paper because he doesn't consider, so he says, he does not consider the elections in this country to be sufficient to remove the current leadership.
But again, he has always justified why he participates in elections. That his intention to always participate in election was to do kind of civic education where the space is closed and therefore they just participate.
Civic
That's
awareness.
Awareness. That's what he always said. And the issue of civil disobedience, if you recall, he started it with walk to work long ago. And he has always believed in it. And he has so many of his disciples who picked the message. Unfortunately, they have not got the gap to succeed with it. And therefore, I believe him looking at this as President Museveni is probably last lap. There is the sun at the other side, and then I think he's going to give it a try for the last time.
Thank you so much, our viewers. Thank you so much for being a great audience out there. Dr. Jared Wanzara, Dr. Daniel Rugarama, and Richard Bagumatinkasimile, thank you so much, the panel. And the viewers who sent in comments and observations. We can't forget the production team behind the cameras and in the controls. We'll be back next Saturday in a newest edition of The Dialogue. My name is Prince Apollo. Stay well. God bless you. God bless Uganda.